Meanwhile, the search for the right Spartacus began with an urgency no one could ignore. Kirk Douglas, a top Hollywood star, not only produced the film, but cast himself as the rebellious slave after frustrations with the Ben-Hur casting. His sharp jaw and strong presence made him the clear favorite, and other candidates were set aside quickly. As the team looked for the stoic Roman general Crassus, Laurence Olivier's sophisticated air and theatrical background outshone others in consideration, and his screen test with Douglas demonstrated a compelling rivalry. Simmons was chosen as Varinia, the gentle love interest, largely due to her ability to deliver sincerity and vulnerability in early chemistry reads, which charmed both Douglas and the director. The role of the brash slave trainer, Draba, went to Woody Strode, whose dignified strength left a memorable impression during auditions, especially in the crucial fight scene. Peter Ustinov's natural wit outshone his competition for the part of Batiatus. His improvisation during chemistry tests gave the producers confidence that he could add layers of complexity and humor as the slave dealer. Charles Laughton, an industry legend, embraced the role of Gracchus after detailed negotiations, his theater roots making him an authority figure who dominated every rehearsal he attended. Behind the scenes, politics and personalities forced last-minute changes as Stanley Kubrick was brought in as director after the firing of Anthony Mann, which shifted the whole tone of the set and led to additional chemistry trials to ensure the third ensemble would adapt. The casting ultimately shaped Spartacus into an epic, not just for its battles, but for the powerful interplay between some of the biggest personalities and actors ever gathered for one film, each selected as much for their off-screen stature as for the unique energy they brought to the screen together. Interestingly, the directorial vision behind Spartacus changed hands early during production, with Stanley Kubrick replacing Anthony Mann after only a week of filming. Kubrick, already showing signs of his meticulous style, worked to make Spartacus both epic and intimate, combining sweeping battle scenes with moments of personal struggle. Influenced by classic Roman artwork and medieval paintings, Kubrick used strong visuals, carefully composing each shot to tell the story through bold lines, light, and shadow. He wanted viewers to feel the weight of Spartacus's impossible choices, and never let the grand sets or thousands of extras distract from the human drama. In his collaboration with the cast, Kubrick faced the challenge of leading stars like Kirk Douglas, Laurence Olivier, and Charles Laughton, many of whom were established and opinionated. He had heated discussions with Douglas about the character's motivations and insisted on multiple takes to get authentic emotions. Further, Kubrick worked closely with screenwriter Dalton Trumbo, respecting his focus on themes of freedom and resistance during a time when Trumbo was blacklisted, which adds another layer to the tension and courage evident on screen. Behind the scenes, Kubrick pushed the crew for innovation, using wide angles and tracking shots to pull audiences into the massive scale of Rebel Lieutenant. He was known for his insistence on repeated rehearsals, and his approach to realism was seen in the gritty hand-to-hand combat scenes, avoiding glamorous Hollywood battles. Even though young for such a major film, Kubrick's perfectionism, visual storytelling, and willingness to challenge conventions made Spartacus as much a product of his vision as it was of its leading men and legendary producers. Right away, Spartacus stands out as one of the most famous movies from the 1960s, telling the story of a slave who leads a rebellion against the Roman Empire. With Kirk Douglas in the lead role, the film grabs your attention with its huge battle scenes, strong characters, and the powerful theme of fighting for freedom. But this movie is not just about action and history. There are many funny, shocking, and sad facts about how it was made and what happened behind the scenes. So keep watching this video to find out more. One question that comes to mind is what qualities make Spartacus an everlasting symbol in the movie industry. Is it the acting, the big sets, or the way it shows courage in tough times. Also, I wonder when you first saw the movie. Was it years ago, or did you discover it recently? Maybe you watched it with family, or maybe it inspired you in a special way. We would love to hear about your most cherished memory or personal experience with Spartacus. So please share your stories and memories in the comments below. At the start of filming Spartacus in 1960, the sheer ambition of the project stood out among Hollywood's great epics. The crew built massive sets to recreate ancient Rome, looking for authenticity and spectacle. Most of the indoor scenes took shape on huge sound stages at Universal Studios, where art directors created Roman villas using columns and painted backdrop. For big action sequences, the filmmakers needed landscapes with open skies and rolling hills. They chose California's Central Valley for the crucial slave revolt scenes, where they pulled together thousands of extras, many drawn from local communities, to form believable armies on screen. The logistics of moving costumes, props, horses, and equipment for these scenes were daunting. They required a near-military operation. Traffic had to be stopped, food and water supplied for everyone, and all the extras had to be coordinated, sometimes in terrible heat. Yet despite all these challenges, the production crew still found ways to innovate, to make the famous battle scenes look realistic. Director Stanley Kubrick used new camera lenses that brought depth to wide shots, letting the audience see the scale of armies clashing. The team employed special color film stock that made costumes and backgrounds pop, even under harsh sunlight. There were also custom devices built for complicated shots, including cranes that provided sweeping aerial views of fights. These technical advances, combined with the scale of the production, gave Spartacus a unique and memorable look. Sets like the Roman Senate featured hand-carved moldings and painted murals, helping actors and viewers step into the past. The director's demand for authenticity led to carefully recreated Roman armor and weapons, with blacksmiths replicating ancient techniques. The film's location work brought dust and wind, the unpredictability of outdoor shoots, but these problems ended up adding realism, as dirt and sweat accumulated on the actors, making their performances feel more genuine. Long workdays, unpredictable weather, and sometimes tense relations between cast and crew meant that shooting Spartacus took real grit. But these same challenges pushed the team to stay inventive and committed every day on set. While watching Spartacus, viewers are immediately drawn into a world shaped by ancient Roman legends, powerful emotions, and larger-than-life personalities. The film's story is inspired by both historical records and creative imagination, giving audiences a combination of fact and speculation about Spartacus, the gladiator who led a slave rebellion against Rome. Plutarch, the Roman historian, and other ancient sources offer only fragmented and sometimes unreliable accounts, leaving much of Spartacus's real-life actions uncertain. To fill these gaps, the filmmakers craft their own vision, turning the legend into an epic tale that highlights both the brutality of Roman rule and the courage found in resistance. In this adaptation, the spirit of the original novel by Howard Fast is honored, yet it is Stanley Kubrick's sweeping direction that brings ancient events vividly to life. Kirk Douglas takes on the central role of Spartacus, imbuing the character with strength and conviction as he sparks hope among those enslaved and inspires fear in the heart of Rome. His performance grounds the film in emotional intensity, drawing viewers into the moral struggle and the personal battles faced by those fighting for freedom. Facing him, Laurence Olivier's portrayal of Crassus is cold and commanding, depicting a Roman general obsessed with power and control over the Republic. The tension between these two figures creates a compelling conflict, while Charles Laughton's Gracchus adds political intrigue as he works to limit Crassus' ambitions, protecting the fragile balance of Roman politics. Alongside Douglas, a remarkable ensemble cast adds energy and depth. Performers like Tony Curtis, Woody Strode, Peter Ustinov, John Gavin, John Ireland, Herbert and Charles McGraw contribute to a larger-than-life narrative, each adding complexity to the world of Spartacus. Their roles, though sometimes overshadowed by the main characters, still carve out moments of importance, reinforcing the sense of a society in upheaval. Despite the grand spectacle offered by the sets, costuming, and score, some viewers have questioned the historical accuracy of events depicted in the film. The need to condense and dramatize the story sometimes leads to departures from documented history, and the prioritization of dramatic conflict over rigorous fact occasionally draws criticism. Yet many feel that the heart of the film lies less in textbook accuracy and more in the ideals it celebrates: resistance to oppression, the rejection of tyranny, and the value of collective dignity. The film does not attempt to hide its romanticization of ancient struggles, and for those willing to embrace its story as a creative tribute, this approach brings both entertainment and inspiration. For audiences who treasure historical dramas and classic Hollywood storytelling, Spartacus offers an immersive experience. The scale of the production, with its thousands of extras and sweeping battle scenes, reflects a time when filmmaking aimed for spectacle and grandeur. While the characters may sometimes seem larger than life, and the film's emotional charge can approach melodrama, the result is a work that feels timeless to many viewers. Its legacy endures, both as a showcase for its star-studded cast and as a meditation on individual freedom in the face of overwhelming force. Throughout the making of Spartacus, the music became a silent but vital character in the film. The composer, Alex North, aimed to mirror the emotional struggles of Spartacus and his followers by using rich, sweeping orchestrations that could evoke both tenderness and rage. North was known for his interest in unusual musical techniques, and for Spartacus, he used a large orchestra with many different instruments to capture the scale and ancient setting of the story. The main theme, marked by powerful brass and stirring strings, underscored the film's epic battles and Spartacus's sense of justice. However, softer moments, like the secret meetings between Spartacus and Varinia, included gentle melodies and subtle harmonies that suggested hope amid hardship. Musicians who worked on the score remember North's focus on rhythm, especially in the scenes of training or rebellion, where the pounding percussion helped viewers feel both the stress and energy of resistance. During production, North collaborated closely with director Stanley Kubrick, sometimes adjusting music to better fit the shifting mood of the scenes. The soundtrack did not only support the narrative, but often deepened it, using music to suggest thoughts and emotions that words could not express. Several popular scenes, such as Spartacus's speech to the slaves, gained their power partly because of the musical undercurrents that built up suspense and uplifted the crowd. Afterwards, critics praised the score as one of the first modern Hollywood film scores to blend dramatic Western music with influences from ancient and folk traditions, providing a new way to think about music in historical epics. Musicians reported spending long nights experimenting with unusual rhythms and harmonies, sometimes inspired by Mediterranean and Middle Eastern folk tunes, which gave the score a sense of authenticity. Even now, people remember the soundtrack not just as background noise, but as a source of the film's unforgettable mood, carrying audiences into battle, loss, heartbreak, and hope. On set, direct clashes sometimes erupted between the filmmakers. When Kirk Douglas asked for Stanley Kubrick's view on the well-known I Am Spartacus scene, Kubrick dismissed it publicly as a bad idea. Douglas responded with a heated rebuke, making clear that actor and director were not always in sync. Production challenges extended beyond creative disagreements. Tony Curtis, who played Antoninus, suffered a split Achilles tendon during a tennis match with Kirk Douglas. He wore a cast stretching from heel to knee. This injury held up shooting for certain scenes, pushing the production schedule until Curtis could recover. Meanwhile, years before the film that came to be known as a landmark epic, Errol Flynn had announced plans in 1951 to star in his own version called The Man from Sparta, But that project never materialized. Tension on set, physical setbacks, and earlier competing projects all influenced the atmosphere, making the finished product a result of persistence and strong-headed personalities. Soon after the movie begins, the cruel training pit where Spartacus, played by Kirk Douglas, is forced to battle for the amusement of his Roman masters, sets the mood with a stark, brutal realism. Director Stanley Kubrick uses tight shots and shadowy lighting to highlight Spartacus's pain and the indignities suffered by the slaves. The performances in this scene feel raw and almost wordless, letting small gestures and glances say more than dialogue ever could. As the camera lingers on Spartacus's defiant eyes, audiences sense the birth of the rebellion within him. Later, during the famous "I am Spartacus" moment, the direction becomes grand and humanizing, with hundreds of upturned faces as one slave after another claims Spartacus' identity. Actor Kirk Douglas described filming this as a moment of true unity among the cast, saying it felt like we were really standing up for something. Kubrick uses wide shots and swelling music to create a sense of togetherness, the scene swelling with emotion, leaving viewers feeling the power of collective resistance. In the climactic gladiator battle between Spartacus and Antoninus, played by Tony Curtis, the cinematography shifts closer, capturing their emotional agony. As they fight, Kubrick makes their friendship and inner struggles, not just the violence, the focus. Curtis once remarked that he and Douglas worked to show their characters' sadness as much as their strength, and it resonates in every swing and glance. The scenes with Laurence Olivier as Crassus ooze with menace, especially during the lingering oysters and snails conversation, which uses close, uncomfortable framing and loaded pauses to add layers of tension and subtext about power and desire. Kubrick's direction here is subtle, letting the dialogue and performances do the work, while the lighting keeps everything just a bit off balance. Audiences are left unsettled, but can't look away. Filmmakers later praised the film's army scenes, which use real extras and sweeping vistas. The marching, the clash of battle lines, and the smoke-filled air all give a sense of scale almost unheard of at the time. Douglas himself called the spectacle and chaos honest, and critics have said it's this realism, mixed with human pain and resolve, that makes these scenes so memorable. The themes of sacrifice, friendship, and rebellion are underscored by both the epic staging and the close-up moments of suffering and resolve, giving viewers an emotional journey that lingers long after the final frames. Olivier was known for transforming himself with heavy makeup and prosthetics because he believed these tools unlocked his best performances. On set, he often requested elaborate disguises even if a character did not demand it. The film of Gracchus takes creative liberties, as the figures it refers to were actually brothers who lived decades before these events and served as tribunes, not senators. Their real story was quite different from what is shown, with neither being present during the rebellion led by the slave army. The script also features Julius Caesar as a young officer, but little evidence exists to show whether he really fought in the historical conflict known to Rome as the Third Servile War. While Caesar later became an important leader, the details of his involvement, if any, in putting down the uprising remain uncertain. This blend of factual history and dramatic changes helped shape a story that blends accuracy and fiction without drawing clear lines between the two. Amid the political turmoil and growing desire for personal freedoms in the 1960s, Spartacus struck a nerve with audiences who saw parallels between the struggle of the slaves on screen and the social movements they witnessed in real life. The movie's defiance of authority, especially in the well-known scene where men stand and declare, "I am Spartacus," echoed deeply with those fighting for civil rights, workers' rights, and broader equality. It reflected the hope that ordinary people could unite and challenge oppression, making it much more than just another sword and sandals epic. On another level, the film's production became a symbol of resistance against censorship and political blacklisting in Hollywood, with Dalton Trumbo, a blacklisted screenwriter, credited openly. Spartacus helped chip away at the power of the Hollywood blacklist during the Red Scare. This move began changing how people in the film industry and the country thought about freedom of speech and political expression. Beyond these important themes, Spartacus left a bold mark on popular culture. Its passionate speeches, intense battles, and stirring music were often referenced and parodied in other movies, TV shows, and art. Even decades later, people remember and repeat lines or mimic scenes. Larger than life, the movie set the standard for epic storytelling and big-budget spectacle, inspiring a long list of historical dramas and blockbuster films. At the same time, leaders in both politics and activism sometimes reference Spartacus to draw attention to the power of individual and collective bravery. The film's lasting popularity reflects how well it captured the mood and emotions of its original audiences, influencing conversations about rights, justice, and unity across generations. Over the years, only a few films by Stanley Kubrick were chosen for the National Film Registry, highlighting the lasting value of his work. While Paths of Glory joined the registry in 1992, another of his productions was not preserved until 2017, marking a long gap between these recognitions. Before its restoration, the original camera negative was found to be completely faded and unusable, putting the entire film at risk of permanent loss. To save it, film preservation experts had to use alternate source material. The existing color separation elements, created on black and white film in the early 1960s, allowed technicians to rebuild the visuals and restore the film to its former quality. This resourcefulness prevented the loss of a major piece of cinema history. The production included several details reflecting historical research, such as the price of a gladiatorial show, which in the story was set at 25,000 sesterces. Adjusted for modern value, that sum would be equal to about $75,000 in 2022, showing the scale and expense involved even in ancient times. The effort to rescue and preserve this film has served as a lesson for future restoration projects, emphasizing the need for alternative preservation strategies when original materials fail. Hollywood's largest epics often face such technical challenges, yet the continued relevance and visibility of this film after decades show how restoration work can give classic stories a new life. Back in 1960, the release of Spartacus commanded widespread attention from both critics and audiences, beginning with praise for its sweeping scope and ambitious storytelling. Initial reviews focused on the film's grand battle scenes, the vivid sets, and the strong performances, notably from Kirk Douglas, Laurence Olivier, and Peter Ustinov. Critics appreciated the film's ability to mix action with emotional depth, highlighting the memorable script by Dalton Trumbo, who at the time was emerging from the shadow of Hollywood's blacklist. Audiences flocked to theaters, causing huge box office returns, and many were moved by the themes of freedom and rebellion against oppression. As a result of the film's impact, Spartacus won multiple awards, including 4 Oscars for Best Supporting Actor, Best Art Direction, Best Cinematography, and Best Costume Design. It was also nominated for other prestigious honors, and this recognition offered lasting respect for the director Stanley Kubrick, who, despite being quite young at the time, already showed clear command over epic storytelling. The Oscar for Ustinov boosted his career and cemented his reputation as a versatile character actor. For Kirk Douglas, producing and starring in Spartacus brought acclaim that helped him shape Hollywood's future, as he was instrumental in hiring blacklisted writers and fighting for creative freedom. These accolades meant increased opportunities, credibility, and a kind of creative vindication for the cast and crew, making Spartacus not only a celebrated film, but a turning point for many of those involved in its creation. At the world premiere in New York City's D-Mill Theater, a contract between Universal Pictures and the theater set the highest rental minimum in history at $1 million. Earlier, Alcyona Productions, with Yul Brynner and Martin Ritt, had planned their own film adaptation, but Kirk Douglas, encouraged by his agent Lou Wasserman, moved his project forward with Universal. Bolton Trumbo, despite his status as an open communist and being blacklisted, delivered a screenplay in just 2 weeks, which helped Universal and Douglas secure the rights and move their version into production first. Publius explained the movie is, at its core, a story about love between Spartacus and Varinia, among the men themselves, and more deeply, set within a revolt fueled by a longing for freedom and shared humanity. Throughout, the narrative emphasizes not just battles, but also deep emotional connections and the pursuit of dignity, shaping the movie's central conflict and shaping how audiences understood the fight for personal liberty. During the making of Spartacus in 1960, the set was filled with as much drama off-camera as on. Kirk Douglas was both star and a driving creative force. He made a bold move by firing the original director, Anthony Mann, after only the first week of shooting, bringing in Stanley Kubrick instead. The switch shook the crew, who soon learned Kubrick was a perfectionist, often demanding take after take, wearing down even veteran actors like Laurence Olivier and Charles Laughton. Meanwhile, Jean Simmons described her time on set as long but fascinating, observing passionate arguments about lines and scenes between Douglas, Kubrick, and the screenwriter Dalton Trumbo. The casting of Trumbo was itself a silent rebellion, as he had been blacklisted for alleged communist ties in Hollywood. Douglas insisted Trumbo be credited, which broke the blacklist, but it meant scripts were often changed at the last minute without warning. While filming the Grand Gladiator scenes, extras playing slaves spent hours in the Spanish sun, and sometimes the horses would break ranks, running across the massive sets and forcing resets. The film's famous I'm Spartacus scene took days to shoot, and whispers, say extras, felt genuine chills as hundreds rose in solidarity, a message that resonated with many still dealing with the aftermath of the blacklists. Eyeing the scale, Kubrick would rise at dawn to line up camera shots among thousands, hoping for the perfect backdrop. Though tempers flared and sleep was scarce, many involved later admitted the experience changed their lives, and friendships forged in the chaos lasted for years. However, when Spartacus was released in 1960, it changed how people thought about big movies and what stories Hollywood could tell. The film was groundbreaking because it mixed an epic scale with a strong focus on the struggle for freedom and justice, showing a group of slaves fighting against the Roman Empire. With its vast battle scenes and detailed settings, the movie set new standards for historical epics. But what really set it apart was how it challenged the way movies were made behind the scenes. Director Stanley Kubrick took over after another director left, shaping the film into an example of creative control. More importantly, Spartacus became famous for helping break the Hollywood blacklist. Bolton Trumbo, who had been banned from working for years because of his political beliefs, was credited as the screenwriter, making a public statement that pushed back against censorship. The film starred Kirk Douglas, who insisted Trumbo get credit, and Douglas also helped bring a sense of humanity to the main character, drawing audiences into the story at a personal level. The famous line, "I am Spartacus," became a symbol for unity and courage, resonating both in later movies and in real life. In the years that followed, directors found new freedom to choose their own material and to challenge studio rules. Films about people who refused to surrender, whether ancient slaves or modern rebels, often follow paths first shaped by Spartacus. In that sense, it left an imprint on movies like Gladiator and even influenced TV shows about history and rebellion. Its bold approach to storytelling and production still inspires filmmakers who want to mix action with ideas and question the status quo. Looking back, many people remember watching Spartacus and feeling deeply moved by its powerful story and unforgettable scenes. This film wasn't just about gladiators. It showed the fight for freedom, dignity, and standing up to what you believe is wrong. For some, Kirk Douglas's performance turned him into a hero, while others remember the rousing moment when people stood up and said, "I am Spartacus," perhaps inspiring them to stand with others in real life. Some viewers recall being fascinated by the visual effects and grand battle scenes, marking their first real glimpse into epic movie-making. Others might have learned about history, slavery, or ancient Rome from watching the film, and maybe questioned what liberty and courage mean in today's world. Every person who watched Spartacus carries a memory. Maybe it was a family night, an old movie theater, or a rainy afternoon on TV. Whether it made you a lifelong fan of classic cinema or taught you something new about storytelling and bravery, your story matters. Share in the comments how Spartacus shaped your thoughts or made you feel. Did it spark a new interest in history or movies for you or your family? Let's trade stories and celebrate this epic film together. And if you enjoyed this conversation, remember to like, share, and subscribe for more journeys into movie